to continue on with just some thoughts about government leadership, which is stemming from some of the national discussion that happened after the shooting incident in Tucson. So I pulled out Aryadeva's 400 Stanzas, which is a beautiful book. And in chapter 4, he talks, it's a chapter about abandoning pride, and it's directed towards the kings of the country, or in our situation, the politicians, okay? Because, you know, people in power tend to be very proud, and that pride can lead them to misuse their power. But Aryadeva is actually saying there's no reason to be proud because of being in a position of being the ruler or being the leader. Okay, so I just thought to talk about a few verses that Aryadeva talks about. So one of them says, who that is wise about worldly existence would be arrogant, thinking I and mine, for all things belong equally to all embodied beings. In other words, everything that exists belongs equally to all embodied beings. Yeah, when we came into this world, we didn't own anything. Yeah, and whatever exists in this world, you know, the environment supports all embodied beings, not just us. So it's very important to be aware of that, you know. So as a politician, I think also for us as a rich country to be aware that all things belong equally to all sentient beings, and not to fall into the arrogance of thinking I and mine, that, you know, because of certain conditions that happen to exist right now, that we deserve to have more of the earth's resources than anybody else. Okay, the next verse says, society's servant paid with a sixth part. That's because the king's got a sixth part of the taxes or the income. Okay, so why are you so arrogant? You're becoming the agent of actions depends on being placed in control. In other words, somebody who's the leader is not the leader inherently. Anybody who has any position isn't inherently that position. They are only in that position because of being placed there by who? The people that support them. Okay? So you wouldn't have a king or a president or whatever without the citizens of the country giving that person that label and supporting them in doing that action. Yeah. Right now, it's complete chaos in Egypt because the people are in revolt against Mubarak and want him out, you know. So it's a very good example of this. He's only in power when the people are quiet, and now they aren't quiet anymore. And we don't know whether his regime's going to make it or not, you know, because the people aren't backing him and they want real democracy. Okay? So it's all the thing of, you know, why think I am so great or I have eternal power as long as I live, you know, because one only has a position in dependence upon the whole environment that makes that position possible. Okay, another verse says, when a ruler seems to be the protector of his people as well as the protected, why be proud because of one? Why not be free of pride because of the other? So the commentary says, a king may feel proud because he protects his people, but it also seems that the ruler himself is protected by the people, since he could not be the king unless they protected him. Yeah? So, I mean, it's so true, whether you're democratically elected or you're a despot, you know, the people protect you in your role of power. So you're also the protected You're not the one who's protector. So get it out of your head that you can act independently without listening to anybody else. You know, this is a mutually dependent relationship here. Those who act at others' insistence are called fools on this earth, yet there is no one else at all so dependent on others as you. Okay? So, you know, any politician, you know, a person in power, you know, they are completely dependent on their constituents, and they have to act according to how the constituents want. Yeah. So actually, they're not these independent leaders who should be proud, because they have to do what the people supporting them want. Yeah. Okay. So there's you know, many more in here, but I just thought these verses were quite interesting to give us a view, you know, about our own government, about what's happening in Egypt, and like I've been talking to, you know, in whatever institution we work, if we have a position of leadership, to realize that we're also dependent on the people who endorse us being in that position. Yeah, and it's a mutually dependent thing. And so there's, you know, no reason to be arrogant and think that we're very powerful when, in fact, we're completely dependent. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's really emphasizing how much we have to work together in whatever group we are a part of, whether it's a family or a monastery or the U.S. government. We have to work together. Yeah, we aren't independent agents that can do what we want. Mubarak has been trying to be that, and he has succeeded in being that for 30 years, but it's all collapsing now, you know, and he's totally backed in a corner, and the people are suffering. Mm-hmm.
So what if in your position of power your constituents asked you to support something that you in your heart feel is unethical?
Okay, so if you're in a position of power and your constituents ask you to support something that in your heart you feel is unethical, what do? I think you explain to the constituents why you feel it's unethical, and you try and help them to understand. Yeah, because it's an ethical issue. In your heart, you've got to make sure it's an ethical issue, not a power issue. Yeah, sometimes people mask a power issue by saying it's an ethical one, but it's not. Yeah, so, but if it's an ethical one, then you have to explain why you consider that an ethical issue, you know, and try and help people to understand.